right, take a look at this. The snow line there is nearly all the way down here, so it's just about winter. And so for today, we're going to go through 3 super quick and easy tips for putting our perennial vegetables and fruits to bed for the winter. So before we head out to the garden to start prepping our perennial vegetables and fruits for the winter, we need to understand a couple of foundational pieces. So I'm going to grab a piece of paper here. And the first question that I know I was asking a few years ago is, what even is a perennial versus an annual? And so our annuals are our plants that are going to die off at the end of the season. But then perennials are our plants that grow back year after year. And there's lots of trees, lots of flowers, lots of shrubs, roses that are all perennials, but there's also a whole lot of fruits and vegetables that actually fall into the perennial category. So the next question from there, of course, is which fruits and which vegetables are perennials? And on that front, there are tons of them. So we've got our strawberries, rhubarb, blueberries, raspberries, asparagus, rosemary, and a whole bunch of other herbs like thyme, oregano, sage, chives, etc. And the amazing part about these perennials that I'm really starting to fall in love with is that once we've established them, they then grow back year after year and are really, really low maintenance, which means that we then start to get a greater and greater yield without really putting in that much more effort. And that's why we want to give them this extra little bit of love and care at the end of the season before we go into winter to give them the best likelihood of surviving and growing into the following season. So with that being said, let's head outside now for our first tip. So our first tip for prepping our fruits and vegetables for the wintertime is pruning. And do we go about pruning? And my personal philosophy here is that no, you don't need to be pruning as you go into the wintertime. And the reason behind this is because first and foremost, the reason why we prune is to promote new growth. And with us going into wintertime here, it's going to be cold, it's going to be darker, it's going to be raining. It's not ideal growth conditions. Our plants aren't going to be putting on any growth, so that prune isn't going to be accomplishing too much. The second piece is that when we do prune, we're cutting the plant, which is then leaving a wound on the plant. And given that that's open, that there's more rain coming down, there's more elements at the moment, there's a higher likelihood that that could result in some form of an infection or damage to that plant, opposed to doing it in the springtime where we've got longer days, more sun, and it's going to heal up more quickly. And the third and final piece is that some of our perennials, such as lavender, could have seeds on it, and other ones like this raspberry have foliage, and that is going to provide both food and shelter for a whole bunch of birds, insects, and other garden critters out there. So my thinking there is, hey, we might as well just leave it in the garden so that they've got a little bit more to survive off of over the course of the wintertime, and then we can take care of all that pruning when we get into the spring. Plus, it means that we get to wrap up and go inside where it's warm a little bit quicker. I'm not sure if you're able to hear that, but the rain just started coming down. I was trying to beat it, didn't happen. And you know what? I'm gonna be stubborn. I'm not even gonna put my rain jacket on. We're gonna finish off these last 2 tips. And if I get soaking wet, then so be it. All right, so our second tip for prepping our perennial vegetables and fruits is all around nutrition in the soil. And just like our annual beds, these plants have been pulling nutrients from the soil all through the summer so that they can put on all of their growth. And so what we want to do is begin rejuvenating these beds, getting some nutrients back in there. And as you know, the name of the game for me is compost, compost, compost. And so all that we need to do is add 1 to 2 inches of compost to each one of these beds. And this is really great for 2 reasons. One, it gets all those nutrients, all those microbes in there to begin rejuvenating the bed. And then the second piece is that it adds another layer of insulation because the roots have been growing down beneath the surface and we want to protect them from the cold weather through the winter here. And so by adding 1 to 2 inches of compost, that's 1 to 2 more inches of insulation. And the last piece is that I don't do any fertilizing at this point in time. The reason behind that is because we get so much rain as it's coming down on me right now through the winter, and the plant isn't looking to do any growth right now. And so I don't want to be topping these beds up with tons and tons of nutrients in the form of an actual fertilizer, because this rain will probably end up just rinsing and leaching a lot of that away into our waterways, which we absolutely don't want to be doing. All right, so just before we get to our third and final tip, if you've gotten any value from this video, go ahead, give it a like, a comment. That really helps us get in front of more gardeners. And for those of you that I have not met before, my name's Jordan from Mind and Soil, where we're looking to introduce 1 million individuals to gardening's mental health benefits. So if you're looking to feel more peacefulness, more calmness, more restoration in your life, then go ahead and subscribe, come grow with us. We put out new videos every week and we'll help you get your hands dirty. So we've got the compost down here. And so the third and final tip is that we want to add a mulch for further insulation. And so when we think about the variables in the environment that are changing, the biggest kind of likelihood or the most likely reason why our plants could potentially die through the winter is because of how cold it could end up getting. And so we want to protect them from that really, really frigid cold temperatures that they could be experiencing. We've started to do that with adding that 1 to 2 inches of compost, and we're going to finish it off by adding a mulch on top. I'm a huge fan of using leaves because they're readily available right now in the fall, but they also continue to add really, really great organic matter into the beds. And so all that you need to do here is just take your mulch and lay it across the bed, and don't be afraid to be really generous with the amount that you put on there. To be honest, I usually end up putting close to 4, 5, 6 inches of leaves onto the plants, and that's just providing more insulation and even more of an environment for microbes and little organisms to be living in and calling home through the winter. All right, so these babies are all tucked in. Raspberry's looking good, rosemary is looking great. Everything else over there has leaves all around it. If you want bonus points, you could put landscape fabric down over top of this, just as we do on our video on annuals and how to be prepping those beds for the winter. And if you want, you can check out any of our other videos as well there. But that's all for today. I hope that this has been valuable in some way, shape, or form. Go out there and get your hands dirty. I'll catch you on the next one.